I want to highlight the fact that we have a live event coming in November again. We just finished one in May. This is a photograph from our live event in Los Angeles. This wasn't the one we just had. This is a few events ago. This is not everybody either. A few people were out of the room and some other sessions that we had in other rooms, some of our advanced students. But this is an event. This is typical of a classroom that we might have for profiler training. And we thought instead of just showing you a picture here, and letting you see just people in a picture, like who are these people? I don't know anybody here. We'd bring live people on here to talk with you. And so I want to go to Coley first. Coley is a person who just joined us for our live profiler training. And I just wanted to get a quick explanation or some, Coley, you go ahead and activate your camera and your microphone. That's totally cool if you're able to. Coley, first of all, before we get started, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So what is your best fit type? What do you identify with in the Myers-Briggs system?
I identify as an INTJ.
Fantastic. And just paint us a real quick picture. I don't want to spend too much time on this, maybe a minute or two. What was the event, the profile training event that you just came to like 3 weeks ago?
Well, I don't want to oversell it, but I don't think I can. It was just so amazing. Definitely one of the most impactful experiences of my life. The reason I originally enrolled into it was not necessarily to be able to do formalized profiling, but more to be able to solidify my type knowledge and be able to use that to really connect with people. Because I'm someone who I've had a hard time with people understanding me. And so I really like to, understand myself, and then also provide that knowledge to other people who maybe also have a hard time giving voice to their strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. I just find that giving that people a cathartic experience really enjoyable.
Yeah. Now, we asked you to be on here because you are an INTJ, and we tend to attract a lot of INTJs, INFJs, INTPs, and INFPs. A lot of other types too, but I would say I don't know what your experience was like, but my guess is, as an INTJ, being in a room with so many other INTJs, ENTJs, INFJ, what was that experience like? Has that ever happened to you before, where you're in a room with people of like mind?
No, I've never had anything like that. And that was one of the things that was the most impactful, because not only are you around people who think very similarly to you, being surrounded by intuitives just in and of itself is something that doesn't really happen day to day. But everyone there is also just as passionate as you are about type. And so it doesn't matter who it is. It's a group of people just talking. You can just go up and guaranteed they're going to be probably talking about type. And it's just super easy to instantly bond and connect with all these complete strangers. It just immediately felt like a family. And we've got this group chat that we're still constantly texting each other in.
That's really cool.
Nice.
Cool.
What was something that surprised you about the event, or something about the course that surprised you?
Honestly, the amount of knowledge that I've gained, because I've studied personality types for a few years now, and started getting into the cognitive functions a couple years ago. So I had a decent foundation, but after going through all the online material and going to the event, I was still a little bit worried that I didn't quite have a solid grasp on it. But the way that it was taught, I feel like it just takes you, no matter what your foundation level is, and just really helps you, the exercises, the embodiment exercises that go through each cognitive function, that gives you such a solid grasp of them. And by the end of the week, when we did our first official profiling session, going into that, I was still a little bit nervous. I was I don't know if I'm going to be able to just convey all this information that I've just had dumped on me in these 5 days, but it went amazingly well. I gave her all this info. She was an INFJ who had been previously typed as an INTJ, and so I was able to figure out her type accurately and explain it to her. And then, which surprised me, I was able to just answer all these questions she was asking me, because she has an ISTP husband who she knew was going to be drilling her because he thought she was an INTJ. And so I gave her all this ammunition kind of to use to defend her type. So yeah, it was just amazing.
Nice.
That's really cool. Before we let you go, anything else you want to mention or say, or
A highlight, or
anything else?
Yeah.
Like, well, let me just ask you this: if somebody's thinking about doing this, how could you, from your INTJ mind, give them advice of how to make the decision? Like, what would the thing be that you would tell somebody if they're trying to decide whether to do this or not?
I think that just think about, for me, it was very future based. Is like, I think this is, because you can look at it as learning a skill, profiling, but it's so much more than that. It's like really investing in yourself, and you grow so much through the course, and especially at the event, just being around all these people. Like, I can't emphasize enough like how amazing it is to be surrounded by the group of people that I was. It was just such a almost surreal experience.
Cool.
So you would say it was worth the time and investment, the resource?
Yes, okay. Easily. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Coley.
Thank you so much, Coley.
We'll talk soon, man.
Of course.
All right. We're going to go over to, just kind of rolling along here, Kiki. Now, we're going to go clear to the other side of the spectrum. Kiki isn't, well, I'll let you tell us your best fit type, Kiki.
Hey, my name is Kiki, and my best fit type is ESFP.
Yeah. So you just heard Coley talk about being surrounded by intuitives. It was you, two sensors.
I was also surrounded by intuitives.
And a room of intuitives, right? What was that like for an ESFP to be like geeking out about this with a bunch of like abstract thinking weirdos, like you were surrounded by?
I wouldn't call them weirdos, but it was so much fun. It was so much fun. If you are a sensor or think you might be a sensor, don't let it scare you. It's actually, it was just really awesome to be with intuitives, and it gave me so much insight into how I'm different, and why sometimes, I guess I must have a lot of intuitives in my life, and I kind of feel like, why am I not following all of this? So it just like really gave me insight, like, oh, it's because I'm not an intuitive. And, being in this community, I'm just, I feel like it's completely okay for me to not be an intuitive because I have other skills, which is like a really great aha for me at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So you discovered your best fit type as you're going through the program.
I did. When I started the program, I thought I might be an INFP, but something just like didn't really fit with that. So part of the reason I started the program is like, I really want to figure out my type. I really want to learn more about the cognitive functions. And I let myself just be in that question and in that journey of trying on different types. And then after a few months, I was like, okay, I give up. And I had somebody profile me, and I learned that I'm a sensor and not an intuitive.
Yeah. And that was, you and I were having conversations, and that was kind of that was a big aha. I was like,
it was a huge aha.
Mm-hmm.
It was huge. Yeah. And it literally, I feel like it changed my life. And all the knowledge that I got from you and through the program and through the live event, which really, made so much clearer the distinctions of like how I operate versus how other people operate, and learning to appreciate that, and giving myself, or you guys giving me permission and encouraging me to give myself the gift of feeding my dominant function was just, it was literally life-changing for me. It was a really transcendental moment. And I'm so grateful for it.
That's awesome. What was your experience at the event, or having 6 months worth of digital content and then going to live event?
It was so fun. It was just really, really fun. Like I said, it was, it was so many things. It was probably the first time I've ever felt so much permission to be myself for like who I really am and how I'm naturally wired. Not only permission, but being celebrated, because everybody wants to see the differences in other people so that they can understand the differences in the cognitive functions. And these are all people that have vocabulary for it. So it's just such a fascinating conversation to be in. And then like in that, even after, like, I think I started in the summer of last year. So it was actually a full year of doing the digital content, but there was really nothing like being there in person with like real live people who were exhibiting their cognitive functions, and you guys pointing out like how they were playing out, that just really crystallized my knowledge. And like I came home and all of a sudden like everything about cognitive functions were clearer. And in my relationships, I'm like, oh, I get that, maybe that's like TI in an inferior function, or just, yeah, it's a lot clearer to me. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert, but I just feel so much more confident.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to say? We always do all the question asking.
Yeah.
I like to give people a space to say something, or maybe from an ESFP standpoint, how would you recommend someone think about this? If they're trying to make a good decision whether to do this program or not, how could they approach that decision?
Well, I will tell you how I approach the decision, as an FP, which, may not be as logical or rational as some thinkers, but my best decisions come from my heart. And, I made lots of logical reasons why I would take this program and like all the benefits it could have. But what it came down to is like, I just like breathe into it, and like I tap into my heart, and like, I envision myself there and how it makes me feel. And it was just a very resonant yes. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going.
That's
Awesome.
great.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to having you. You're totally right. Sensors do end up becoming little celebrities. Everybody's like, tell me how your brain works.
Yeah.
So Kiki was one of our celebrities, and it was amazing having you. And you created such a far more rich experience because you were there.
Well, and you also get to feel what it's like for us intuitives in the world, surrounded by most sensors. We flip the script and it's like, oh, I kind of get what everybody else is dealing with half the time.
Yeah, but let's not keep going on about intuitives.
It's all cool. But thanks, Kiki, for being here. We really appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful night.
Thank you.
All right, I want to go over to our friend and collaborator, Dr. Dario Nardi. He's staying with us here for the next couple of weeks. He's actually downstairs in our like downstairs dining room area. Hi, Dr. Nardi. Dario, welcome to tonight's webinar. So you actually came. I invited you to speak at our live event in Washington D.C. I think it was like a year and a half ago or so. What was it like? So you came as a speaker. You were there for part of our profiler training experience. And by the way, for people that may not know, Dr. Nardi has written many books on typology. Jung. He is a published author. He's been a professor at UCLA. He has done some neuroscience and brain scan research around how typology or cognitive functions light up the brain in different ways. And so we invited him to come and share some of the things that he has been doing research around and things at our live event. And that's why he was there speaking and being a part of all the event.
So the question is, as somebody who came as a speaker but stuck around for like some of the embodiment exercises and some of the program, what was your take?
I've been in the type community for a long time, as it's been in different forms. And I just realized now, preparing for this evening, it's been 27 years.
Wow.
Since 1994, and I attended my first type conference in 1995. And I have to say that it really was like a pleasure and a rare experience with Personality Hacker. And there's this, there's a long legacy of types that goes back 100 years this year. And in the 70s and 80s, it was all about the Myers-Briggs type indicator instrument and, the 4-letter code. And people really began to have some pushback in the 90s saying, let's look at the functions. And there was a lot of confusion around that. And it maybe took about 10 years to clarify. And just as things are starting to get clarified, the World Wide Web just exploded with all of these tens of thousands of people interested in type, unaware that there are all these professional resources in history. So people are running like, are there any studies at all? And they're not even asking that question. They're just like, I wonder what's the relationship between, or how would we define this function, or whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, that was already worked on. And not only that, but the quality of the programs sort of disappeared as that older generation retired, passed away. And really today, people have such little access to quality programs. It's like, where can they actually practice? And so yours is actually one of the only programs that I know of. There are some that are reserved specifically for like a coaching and counseling professionals and and that kind of thing. But for young people coming in, especially 20s, 30s, and now I can even say 40s, it's really fantastic, you know, to see this kind of, I would say like ethical and also entertaining, practical, you know, energetic process, and considering how much is going on, you know, in terms of like the level of what you're asking for. It's like, yeah, we're going to go through all of the functions, and not just like in a slide deck, or speculative, let's have a conversation like at a cafe, although there's some moments like that which are great. It really is this very serious training program that says we want you to have a skill at the end of it, or build on the skill of profiling, which is, you know, if we can't locate our best fit type, or at least engage in that process, then what else are we doing, and why? So I have to say is just, you know, the learning the practical skills, that sort of like very respectful and also energetic, inspirational approach. And then, you know, as has been mentioned, this meeting of type enthusiasts and type users. You know, there are enthusiasts, and then there are people who are going to be or are using type in a practical, professional way. And to just sit with like minds and have conversations, and all of that is really fantastic. And it's very true. How many times do we get like 50 IN types in a room that know that they're IN types, and they aren't talking about something completely different just by accident? Yeah, I've been to engineering conferences with 50 IN types, but those were all INTJs, INTPs, and maybe some ISTPs. And that was not about type, so it wasn't quite as fun at all. It wasn't as fun at all. So there was really a great energy, and you know, and I feel something too is important is that when we're talking about or really getting into not just personality, but there's an element of psychology to it. You know, Jung's original book was psychological types, not personality types, and you know, we'd hope that people would feel safe in this kind of environment. And I really mean, like, you know, not just to kind of be myself, but being asked to perform in a way, I mean, towards the end of it, and to share and all of that. And I could totally feel that in the space, and to see that over the time that I was there. So is, you know, I'm also stoked that you're using, what is it? You didn't venture off into your own land of like, oh, let's just make up all of our own definitions for everything. You know, everyone has their personal stamp on it, and yet everything is also very familiar to me within the genuine type tradition, too, going back decades. And so there's this sort of professional continuity while also having the innovations that sort of need to have happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying all that.
Yeah.
I had no idea what you were going to say.
I wasn't expecting all that. That's awesome.
Come on and share, and that feels very good to hear. So
yeah.
Thank you very much for saying
well, that. I wasn't planning on it either, so it's, but I'm happy to.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to add, or you feel complete?
I feel complete. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dario. We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.